perfect. 알겠습니다. 알겠습니다. 알겠이라고 합니다. Okay? That should set off the tone of what that is. That was my little Korean introduction for this particular BB Reads. BB Reads being this space where I share my thoughts on the books that I grab from my library grab and goes, or any other way that books or reads tend to find me. In this case, this was an intentional grab. Well, one was an intentional grab. I wanted this. Sometimes I'll go into the library and I'll see a book and I'm like, okay, I can't get this book right now. I don't have the capacity to read this right now, but I will read this at another time. And so I would eye it. I would even like go into the library and look through it sometimes. But I finally got it, and I'm gonna do my little BB Reads on it. And then the other two, we'll be doing 3 this time around, but the other 2 are ones that I found looking through the library catalog on the internet, because I was looking for a specific kind of book. What kind of book? If I guess if you don't know the language, you don't even know the context in which I'm introducing these in. But these are my Korean reads. A little bit more context, I guess, is that I started learning Korean about a year ago. And so I'm at the point in my Korean learning where I can read more like lengthier, more meatier texts. Not fully, but I can get through if I work with Papago, but I understand a lot of the grammar already. But Papago maybe kind of like helps me fill in like some of the vocab, or because Papago really doesn't help with grammar, and also Naver if I really don't understand a grammar point, but I usually do. I'm at the point where I can understand that in story form specifically, so I wanted to holistically test that with, just get started, right? This book called Short Stories in Korean. This is the one that I was eyeing for quite a while. This one is by Olly Richards. So this is not actually by a native Korean speaker. But what the benefit of it is, Olly Richards is a polyglot. He knows quite a few languages. And honestly, this was the only... There's another Korean book that the library that I go to has, but it's definitely more advanced. It's more like a novel, whereas like this Korean Short Stories in Korean is let me read it down here, right? Short Stories in Korean for Immediate Learners. So intermediate learners. So like this book is designed, and the stories are designed in this book for folks who are like learning Korean, so it's not going to be too complicated of grammar or like these like nuances and like things like that. And there's with each story there's a guide. There's a guide to some of the vocab in the story, not necessarily the grammar. And then there's like a little quiz at the very, trying to get that in focus. There's a quiz at the end to kind of see if you retained the juice and the plot of the story or the characters or any of the information. And this is in full out Korean though, y'all. Like it's pretty cool. And I was excited when I found this at the library, because I was like, oh, if I can get through some of it, I will feel pleased with myself. And absolutely, I do feel pleased with myself. I have to admit that I did not finish the whole of this. As you can see, this is pretty thick. This is a 200-page book. And yeah, there was no way. And I renewed this at least once. There was going to be no way that I was going to finish all of this one, with Korean not being my native language, and even though I can read Korean really well at this point in my learning, I'm still tripping up on stuff, right? Like, I'm still in the process of learning and really understanding. So I'm not reading and breezing through these as if this is my native language, right? Or my primary language. I'm not moving through this as quickly. I had to kind of like take breaks and then like look up stuff if I need to. But I will say, to give myself a little pat on the back, that like by probably the third chapter I needed to do that a lot less. And so yeah, one of the things that I really enjoyed about this book, however, is that there's a guide to like on how to read effectively, and I'll end up probably talking about language learning on an upcoming little ditty bop I got coming up. But what I really like is that there's a guide on how to like be able to have this book be a companion, and for it to be an effective companion to you like in your language learning. And I really appreciated that. Like, reading that, I read the introductions of books, y'all, okay? But I really appreciated that specifically because one of the main guides was that, like, read the story once, or read a chapter once, which each chapter is, like, 3 to 4 pages. So it is hefty, right? But read it once and don't really worry about the grammar or the vocab or, like, the needing to just, like, look back and forth just yet. Just, like, try to read it straight through. And like even try to break that down into like smaller parts. Sorry, but try to break that down into smaller parts, and then you'll be able and like just read it straight through without needing to translate it at the same time. And then read it again. Come back later, read it again, pause, read it again, and then like try to, figure out what's going on. And see if you can read it the first time and figure out what's going on. If you can't, read it a second time, try to figure out what's going on, and then read it again. And you can break this down as small as you need to, or as like, how ready you feel to take the next step. But like, then you can also read it again with like trying to understand the grammatical concepts, or read it again and with the vocab help in the back, or annotate it or whatever. This is a library book, so I cannot write in this and annotate it in any kind of way, but I really do wish that I owned this book. I would definitely have it on my shelf so that I could write and kind of like allow it to be a companion, because I really like, one of the fascinating things for me about learning Korean is the grammar structures. And so having and like breaking them down, because it kind of mimics math to me. So breaking it down and putting it back together, I really do like annotating that. But I also loved the process, or loved the recommendation to process and read the book this way, because it has like increased just kind of like my skill to read Korean, which is always the thing. I can learn languages like reading very well. And especially like just reading it out loud, it's like, and then like, having to come up against words that you don't know. So like you're gonna be reading it kind of like not like a native speaker at all. But the challenge itself is very fun, and like trying to understand and figure out the story is fun too, because even the questions at the end, there's like 5 maybe, but even the questions at the end are in Korean. So it's like it kind of just builds your like learning and understanding, your comprehension skills. That's what I'm trying to say. Your comprehension skills fairly well, and I think books do a really great job at that anyway. Or reading does a great job at that. So yeah, I would definitely have this book on my shelf. I feel like there was one more thing that I wanted to say about it. So with this book too, the short stories are often split into 4 chapters of about like 3 to 4 pages, maybe 5, depending on just like length and like, all of those things. But so like each chapter will be about like, or each story wholly is like 20 pages at the most, 15 to 20 pages. And I really I really appreciated it being broken down like that, because I didn't know that when I got it. I was like, at first I thought that each chapter was one short story. But that would have been like a lot of little stories to read. So I really do appreciate it being broken down in that way. And it gave me like, it kind of allowed me to follow a story for that long in a language that is, once again, not my primary language. And so, like I said, that just helped me kind of build better comprehension around Korean, and especially because a lot of like my language learning of Korean happens in like knowing how to build sentences and knowing how to say things and all of those things at this point, or that's been kind of like the majority of it. Reading in your target language, kind of like seeing how you can put all of these different structures together to create stories, is very different than like just learning like conversational Korean or conversational language. And so like seeing it in story format kind of helps me to like recognize how to like build, you know, like build a story, or like build a way to like speak. I don't know, it's a lot that you can build with that, but it just kind of informs like storytelling, which we do in conversations too, but you know, that's not really like where my lessons like target for the most part. And so like reading it in story form is like, it just made me feel, it makes me feel a lot more confident to follow along in a story, like if someone's telling it, especially because of like how Korean language is too, and to also like be able to put things together and like, I guess the most clear example that I can think of is like, I'm not just like, hi, my name is eye-kuh, I am 27 years old, and I do this and I do this. It's like I can really like, seeing it in the story form helped me to understand like how to even connect sentences, which I'm learning about, yes, but like how to do so in a more seamless way, in a way that's like, you're not just building these disparate sentences to kind of like throw out as like little factoids, but like as a, just, can you know how I'm talking here? Like there's a topic, and I'm continuously expanding on that topic and expanding on that topic and expanding on that topic, and following along with all of that, and doing so in a way that's not like, I just read a book in Korean, the book was good, it was in Korean. Like, it's not like that, right? So like reading it kind of helps me to understand how to apply Korean in that way. So fighting. All right, so second book. So to continue on with my Korean learning, I think that children's books or comics are also very effective like reading materials, because once again, or I always think like children's books are not going to be complicated, and especially this is called I Love My Mom, or this is kind of blocking it. I Love My Mom. 나는 우리 엄마를 사랑해요. 나는 우리 엄마를 사랑해요. I Love My Mom. And this book was pretty special. Let me go back to my thoughts around children's books. Children's books will be more fundamental language, or like it'll be the basic sentences or the basic grammar structures. It won't be too complicated as a novel would be, or as a like it's an adult storyteller. I don't know. Like, it won't be as complicated, because it'll kind of like, but it depends on the age group, of course. But like this, in my looking for Korean stories, I was looking for children's books for the purpose that they wouldn't be as complicated and great learning materials. This particular one, I Love My Mom, 나는 우리 엄마를 사랑해요 is pretty cool in the fact that, and I didn't realize this because I looked it up online and the cover page was not the same, but it provides both, right, English, or it provides Korean at the top, Hangul, and then the English translation at the bottom. So me being who I am, I'm challenging myself to figure out if I can I can read it without the translations first, and if I don't understand something, which this kind of lets me know that I am really comprehending the language, even if I don't know a particular word or I don't know a particular grammar structure just yet. With the English translations at the bottom, I'm able to kind of even if I just get the gist of the sentence, I can kind of like once I read the sentence in English, I'm like, oh, okay, like this is this word, like, so that I don't need to go look up the word itself in general, but because I understand like how Korean sentences are formed, and I can comprehend that a lot better now that I've been studying for a year, like consistently for a year, that like I can fill in the blanks quite easily from English translations, or like I can look at an English translation and kind of like finesse in my head how to say that in Korean, or how that would be said in Korean, and like kind of switch back and forth. So like my translating abilities kind of were highlighted in me reading this book, which I'm always so proud of. I'm like, oh, look at me. And the story, I should talk about the story a little bit, right? The first book, really, they had a few different stories in there. They're all very quirky stories. They're not like too serious or like anything very deep, but like they're kind of fantastical if you understand, or like, I wouldn't say mystery. Like they have, each of them have their own like themes to them, but one of the stories was how someone was surprised by a monster who ended up turning out to be like a surprise birthday party after they were camping in the woods or something like that, going on this hike or whatever, and the friend pranked them. And then another one was the first one was really cool, actually. It was about two siblings who moved to Korea, and they were moving in with a friend, and one sibling, they were going to get something to eat, and they couldn't decide on what they wanted to eat, or they couldn't decide on which bus to take or whatever, blah blah blah. It was going to take too long. One sibling ends up going on the bus, ends up falling asleep on the bus, ends up in some whole other town in Korea, and so now he's trying to find a way back home, finds a way back home in the back of this truck with okay, we make it up. In the back of this truck that was like delivering to a restaurant that was near where they lived, and ended up running into the now roommate's estranged father. And I just like, it's really quirky. It's not like anything like too wild, but they did really good telling the stories. Okay, but anyway, with 나는 우리 엄마를 사랑해요, I know like a Korean speaker would be like, oh, the rhythm of that is so off. I love the fact that I'm trying. Anyway, with this book, it's really just mom's birthday is coming up, and the three little bunny siblings are working together to try to figure out the most appropriate gift for their mother. And they do that. I forgot what it was, but they did that. They threw her a party, I think, and like just kind of gave her all of the things that she really would like a break or some cuddles or some sleep. And yeah, very simple children's book, very simple. I would say I underestimated how difficult it would be Because I'm like, oh, like, it's a children's book. It'll be easy. This is probably, like, a children's book for, like, 7 or 8 year olds, right? Yeah. Probably about, like, 7 or 8. And so just think about the difference between someone who has been diligently, like, learning and exposed to a language for 1 year versus exposed to a language for 7 years, like, and from toddlership, or from, like, you know, being born, right? And granted, you have all the differences available, but just, like, you know, you have 7 to 8 years in a language that you're constantly exposed to. So the format in the writing for in Korean for that age group, and this was a book, I think it's it. I wanted to say it was originally in Korean and it was translated to English. I want to say that, but I am not too confident on that. But once again, the language formatted around a 7 to 8 year old person or practitioner of, or a speaker of Korean, you know, it's not going to be so complicated, right? But it's still going to have grammatical stuff as if you were exposed to this language for 7 to 8 years. So I think I underestimated that a little bit, but I got through it. Okay, I got through it, and that was the point. So 나는, one more time, 나는 우리 엄마를 사랑해요. All right. 마지막 check. My last book, the last book, is 할아버지 낚시 친구. 할아버지 낚시 친구. Let me see. 할아버지 낚시 친구. Couldn't read it backwards. Which is my grandfather's lake friend, fishing friend. Now, I did not have the luxury with this book of having the English translations. So this was, and once again, this is a children's book, but this is probably for someone, and this book I know for sure was written, oh no, it's a Korean translation book. Let me see. This book, even as a native English book, right, is written for someone probably 8 to 9 years old. So the grammatical, maybe even like 10. So the grammatical structures in here are just going to be more complicated. And with this, again, I did not have the luxury of having any Korean subtitles or Korean subtitles English. That's what I get. English, like, translations, like, next to them. So I'm having to read, and, like, even with the first book, right, like, I still at least have some of the vocab in the back of the book. It didn't list all of the vocab, but it tried to list some important ones. And I also worked with Papago. And I had to work with Papago with this one too, honestly, because I was like, oh, your friend is not here. Your friend is not here. Like, I can probably make out a lot of things still, and I was still able to do that. But it was a little, I think also because my Korean practices or my Korean learning hasn't really included a lot of, like, vocabulary around the sorry, it's a car pulling up weirdly. But a lot of my Korean study thus far hasn't had like vocab around fishing or like going to the lake or going to a cottage, and all of those things, or like animals and like kind of what they're going through in this book. Like I haven't ran into a lot of that vocab. So, and when that happens, like as a learner, it can just feel very like overwhelming, like oh my god, like I don't know anything, like all of my studies have went to waste. But okay, all right, it was a lot going on right there. But it can feel like that, especially when I don't have translations to like help guide me, or when I don't have once again, I worked with Papago, which Papago lets you kind of like take pictures of the screen and then like it'll translate, and that's, once again, that's very helpful. Even though Papago is more reliable, way more reliable than Google Translate when it comes to Korean, it is still because of how Korean is structured, where they leave out context in their storytelling and in their language sometimes, or it works a lot on assumed context. Papago will probably translate certain things funnily. It will add in pronouns where you don't really need to. And so it'll kind of make the story make less sense. But if you know these things about Korean, you can work with Papago to kind of like just still help you along the way. But again, not having that just kind of like as a very like alongside this, or having that alongside this book but not having it inside the book, was like, I'm really just kind of being tested by what I know. And I don't know nothing, or I didn't know a lot in Korean in relation to fishing, or like all of the things that you can talk about in terms of fishing, in the language or the vocab, and the sometimes the grammatical structures that can come with that, and I didn't really understand. So this book was harder for me to get through, and I'm gonna say I did not finish it because I was like, maybe another time. But I really did appreciate me challenging myself to do so. I really do appreciate me doing so, because it made me realize what I'm actually, as I move forward in like learning this language, what I'll be confronted with, and all of and like, what I can do with that. And it kind of like helps me to be more prepared, which once again I'll probably talk about, like just all of the things that come with language learning, and like how this could be very frustrating, but like how this wasn't a frustrating experience for me, just because I understand that this is a journey, this is the lifelong thing. Even though I've been speaking English for 25 plus years, there are still words and there are still grammatical concepts and structures that trip me up still, right? And difference between like conversational language and written and formal and then like casual, like all of those things, like we're considering all of that at the same time. So like I understand that in my journey, and I understand that when I bit off way more than I could chew, and I just underestimated the complexity that a not so young adult children's book, basic, like I should have got one of them, like baby reads books, like where it's just the apple and then it says saga underneath, or watermelon subak or something. Like I should have got one of like the babies reads Korean books, and not one that is for 7 to 8 to 10 year olds, because that is just going, like that's just, it's different. So I underestimated it, but I'm glad that I was still able to confront that and be like, okay, I bit off more than I can chew. We still have a lot to study, and let's do that. Hopefully I can pick up this book again at another time and be like, 할아버지 낚시 친구. And I can recite it with ease and in Korean as well. So yes, that is and concludes this movement of BB reads and my Korean reads. If you so happen to be learning Korean, especially if you Black and you learning Korean, or you know somebody Black and they learning Korean, please encourage them and seek them out. Tell them to seek this out. And if they happen to read any Korean texts, that these ones or others that they want to talk about and discuss, please contact me on bb.honey on Facebook and or Instagram, or at my email eye-kuh@gmail.com, and let's let you be a BB that reads and share your thoughts as well, because I truly appreciate it. Anywho, I'll see y'all next time.